In a house in Tawai Lane, there was a kind-hearted old man sitting on a rattan chair under the corridor. Beside him sat a playful and lovely servant girl, wearing yellow striped colored trousers and a light blue gold skirt. While listening to the old man's story, he slowly fanned the wind. The old man suddenly asked, "Peach Bud, where's the wind? Dozing again? It's not to scare you. If you're lazy outside the town, you'll be punished." Without any response, the old man, who has always been kind and generous to his servants, was about to continue to make fun of him. His face suddenly changed, looked up into the distance, and looked dignified. It turned out that in the courtyard, not only the fan held by the girl servant girl, there was no movement out in fact. Even the invisible breeze was still. The old man quickly held his breath, recited the formula, sat and forgot to settle down, so as not to lose his cultivation in vain in the short countercurrent of the long river of time. The old man sighed gently. Jian, who abides by the rules and etiquette, finally made an exception that in this way. The mountain rain is coming and the wind is all over the building. In the iron log well, the burly young foreigner squatted not far away and stared hard at the wheel car. Then out of the corner of her eye, she secretly glanced at the profile of a plump village woman. She was bending down to lift a bucket from the wellhead. She had an amazing arc of her hips and a heavy falling chest. The whole person had a slightly exaggerated curve, exquisite and exposed, and her body burst out a wild breadth of 4 years of weight, which made the woman, who was originally no more than a Chinese, look more unique. When the young man realized that the surrounding environment was strange and still, he didn't move. He just took the courage to face up to the beautiful picture of the woman drawing water. The young man secretly swallowed his saliva, quickly turned his body, and changed his squatting position. No wonder Master said that the women at the foot of the mountain are out of the forest tiger, and their skills have been greatly reduced. But once they are brought up the mountain, they will become the king and hegemony of the mountain tiger. They will eat people. After drinking, Master always says that all the heroes in the world have lost to their own mountain tiger, without exception. But the young man felt that Lin, who was already very powerful, that for example, the woman in front of him was obviously ordinary, but enchanting, which made his heart itch. If she slapped him in the face without saying a word, the young man felt that he didn't dare to fight back at all. That if the woman smiled, he would laugh. When the young man thought of this, he was a little frustrated. He glanced down at his crotch and scolded. No bones. No wonder he has no backbone. In the mud bottle lane, Song Jigson is looking through a thick and old local county chronicle that Song Jigson has found out many rules. For example, it is generally supplemented every 60 years. So Song Jigson privately named the book Jia's Chronicle. In addition, after the people in the small town were taken out by distant relatives when they were young, almost no one has returned to their hometown. It seems that they don't like falling leaves and returning to their roots. Many family surnames spread their branches and leaves outside the wall, and even grew into deep-rooted towering trees. Therefore, Song Jigson nicknamed a book outside the wall. At this time, the young man was reading a page of the biography of people, describing the life story of a man named Cao Shi. His stingy pen and ink was another feature of the county chronicle. Song Jigson had read the book over and over again at least 7 or 8 times. He was already familiar with the book, therefore, in his spare time, he would only select some strange character stories as the romance legends described by a storyteller. There is no textual research on the authenticity that, of course, Song Jigson doesn't care. He only remembers that the man in official clothes came here alone late at night, before he went to Beijing to report on his work and left the town. With an extremely solemn attitude, the man told the youth to remember one thing, that is, recite and remember every person's name and hundreds of people in the book, and their ancestors behind them in the town, especially their relationship with the 4 surnames and 10 ethnic groups that at this time, Song Jigson was motionless, just like those broken clay statues in the southeast of the town, lying in the grass and mud at will, just standing still regardless of wind and rain. Through the window, through the light sprinkled on the desk, maintained an abnormal static state. The only people and things that could move in this house were the maidservant Jigui and the humble quadruped snake. She noticed the difference very early. The first idea in her mind was to go to the next yard to find the paralyzed girl and scold her for being bloody. However, when the maidservant realized the existence of the sword, she gave up the tempting idea. She first came to her young master's room and glanced at the contents of the page. She was annoyed to see the word Kangxi, so she helped the young master turn back a few pages. When she saw the length of Xixai, she smiled happily. But soon she turned back the page to avoid revealing the secret and exposing herself. Over the years, the young master of the shrewd city government was just curious and doubted her identity. She never caught real conclusive evidence. She didn't want to fall short when her great achievements were completed. She often went to rural schools with the young master and thought that the scholars had something to say. It's very hypocritical, such as those who give up their lives and take righteousness. Some words are quite good, such as half 100 miles is more than 90. It really makes sense. The earthy yellow quadruped snake is lying on the threshold to bask in the sun dot at this time. When it is still, it will return to its real body. Under the light, it can be seen that it is glittering and translucent, and its body is like a piece of glass. In the house next to the yard, Ning Yao, a girl in black, fell into a mysterious state of fatal rest. She didn't hiss and inhale with her mouth and nose. If the baby was still in the birth, she looked at the root and stopped thinking. Inside the snow-white scabbard, the flying sword is like an amnesty. When it comes out of the scabbard slowly, it flies around its owner. The little bird is gentle and intimate, and has the beauty of girls' clothes. It is not flying randomly, but like a magic touch dot, it creates the best feng shui place for the healing master. Sure enough, the girl without the slightest sign of breathing quickly flows into her body. She is like a whale swallowing water and immediately absorbs the original aura between heaven and earth. So at this moment, the silence of the town is in sharp contrast to the wind and water of the house. South Creek outside the town, there was a man of short stature, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, strong spirit, bare chest and exposed abdomen. He was beating iron with a hammer. When he hammered it down, sparks splashed all over the room. Countless bits and pieces of fire ran everywhere in the empty room. Gorgeous and spectacular. One swing can make a picture dot opposite the man. There stood a girl with a crisp ponytail. She was petite. She wore a yellow cat-leather robe to prevent sparks from splashing on her body. Ordinary cotton clothes were easy to burn through holes. After a beating, 10 million sparks suddenly stagnated in the house. The girl with ponytail frowned and asked, "Dad," the man said in a deep voice, "It's your turn to hammer the sword. It's just an opportunity to temper your divine will." The girl put down the old sword and poked away the marsh on both sides in front of her. The marsh was waved back by her hand and moved her whole body. The spark that should have been static in the long river of time hit the marsh constantly and collided with each other again and again, making the light in the house look very messy. Compared with those old people in the town who look like a hidden dragon in the abyss, they are all absorbed and calm. What the girl has done is a little too domineering, especially when she swung a hammer. It was strong and heavy, and moved rapidly. It was even more wild and uninhibited than experienced men. Every time you beat the sputtered Mars, it will not disappear in the end. So after stacking again and again, the dense Mars, such as bright stars, cluster in the air. Sword casting room. Mars hundreds of millions. The man stared at the red sword germ and said in a deep voice, "Recite the dragon-shaking chapter of the sword casting sutra." The girl's momentum suddenly decreased and whispered, "Dad." The man said angrily, "What are you doing?" The girl's momentum dropped again and said timidly, "I ate less at noon. I'm hungry and can't beat." The man was more angry. If he wasn't casting a sword, he almost had to teach swearing. It's the same as asking you to endorse. What excuse are you looking for? Damn. Girl, your appetite and hunger are normal. It's really not an excuse. Double quotes. The girl smiled stealthily and said she was hungry. In fact, the action on her hand did not weaken at all. In an instant, the girl moved. After a loud drink, she tried her best to hit it with a hammer and said, "Come out." This time, The sparks sputtered out were extremely numerous and dazzling. The man said quietly, "It's done." In the yard of Gu Kan's house, the woman woke up slowly with a splitting-headed dog with the help of her child. She sat back on the bench. Liu Shimao, the rival-cutting Shenzhen, was closing her eyes and refreshing herself, pinching her thumb and index finger slowly in her sleeve. The woman Gu's son sat beside her and asked softly, "Fairy, what's the matter?" The old man didn't open his eyes and said, "I have a good apprentice. You have a good son. Go. You can rest assured that your mother and son are expensive." The woman was overjoyed. Tears filled her eyes. She hugged the child and whispered, "Son, his father. Did you hear that? We Guken will make great achievements. Liu Shimao suddenly heard a cry of surprise. He opened his eyes and looked down at the palm pattern. It seemed that a new road had diverged. He said to himself, "Why, it shouldn't be. The boy didn't die, but he was the son of the immortal family. He died inexplicably." The old man had to stand up, pace slowly in the hospital and pinch his fingers quickly. Waste planted in the hands of a street boy. The millennium reputation of Xianxia Mountain was destroyed. The woman said uneasily, "Old fairy, since our family canner has already worshipped the teacher, why don't we let Champignon go?" The old man shouted angrily, "Women's benevolence. If you really have a compassionate heart, you and I should have the idea of killing hearts when we first met. Can man pretend to be a female bodhisattva with me at this time? Do you want face or not?" The woman's face turned pale with scolding, and she didn't dare to say a word. The old man was still angry. He stretched out his hand and pointed to the woman and scolded, "Countrywoman, short knowledge. After Gu can return to Shijian Lake with me, you must not meet your mother and son too often, so as not to hinder his practice. Do you have any objection?" The woman quickly waved her hand and said, "No." The old man's eyes were gloomy. The woman was stunned and soon recovered. She looked sad and said pitifully, "No objection. Absolutely not." The old man waved his sleeve hard and snorted coldly, "I'm very angry. Previously, I saw that the woman was quite chic. Just when she had the idea of accepting her as a personal slave, she behaved so vulgar that she deserved to miss a blessing that was expected to enter the threshold of practice." The old man suddenly looked around like a great enemy. Sure enough, this world was artificially static as an end. The end is one of many small caves in the world. Land immortals and golden arhats can be opened up. This kind of great magic power can be described as the highest. Although it is largely due to the big array, it is still odd. Just imagine, as long as you are in this world, you need to call out to me whenever you are a fairy, Buddha, God, demon or ghost. Liu Shimao, the true king of the river, dreamed of reaching such a height. Don't use it. Fuck you. Liu Shimao wished that after this small cave, he would bring in all the third-generation disciples of the Buddha, the Taoist priest and the leader of Confucianism. He dared not say to ask them to bow down and sit on an equal footing with their peers. Without warning, Liu Shimao spit out a mouthful of blood, and the palm of his hand spattered with blood, as if someone had cut a blood groove with a sharp weapon. On the other hand, the white ball appeared involuntarily. The ripples on the water's surface were chaotic, and the black lines ran around and hit the wall without hesitation. The old man folded his palm on the back of his hand. As a member of the side door of Taoism, he bowed to the end with Confucianism. He was extremely pious and said in a trembling voice, "Liu Shimao, the island owner of Qingshan Island, the leather leg, implores Mr. Che to have mercy on the younger generation's sincere desire for Tao. If there is any offense, Sir the sage doesn't remember the villain. After a long time, leave quickly." The full word sounded like spring thunder in the real gentleman's ear. Liu Shimao said with ecstasy, "Don't worry, sir. I'll leave the town with Gu's mother and son." The old man, who has always regarded himself as a younger generation, remembered this and asked carefully, "Say, what should I do with these 2 bags of gold? Refine copper money on my younger generation?" The dignified voice sounded again. "1 person and 1 thing are just 2 opportunities. Just stay in the hospital. You are not allowed to leave Shijian Lake for half a step within 30 years. Liu Shamao was relieved this time. He didn't flatter like that. He deliberately bowed to Confucian scholars. Could just made a solemn bow as chief inspector. The elders dare not resign. Mr. QI's great kindness is unforgettable to the younger generation. After that, Che Jingchen's voice didn't appear, and the end soon disappeared. Liu Shamao didn't talk nonsense. He immediately asked Gu to take Gukeng with him to leave the town. Gu was about to speak, but Liu Shamao stared at her with a fierce look, which frightened the woman into silence. Liu Shamao took out her bags, although he was reluctant to give up. However, the Taoist priest, who was determined to be a true gentleman, still put it on the bench without hesitation. Just when he first came to the courtyard, Liu Shamao suddenly asked, "Have you left any old objects in your family?" Gushai was at a loss. Gukeng immediately reminded him that didn't leave a dual-bow pavilion, or the one who hid under the bed to eat ash. As soon as Liu Shamao's eyes lit up, he asked the woman to lead the way and find out. Since the sage recognized that Gukeng was an opportunity, it meant that the child could take away his own opportunity. As for the final ownership of these opportunities, in the small town, I'm afraid I have to listen to Che Jingchen when I come, but it's hard to say when I arrive at Shujian Lake. Finally, unattended Gukeng waited until the two entered the house, grabbed the bags with one hand, gently pulled out the door bolt, and ran to the other end of the mud bottle laying Gushai, a woman in the house, knelt on the ground and leaned under the bed to carry the box. The box was small but heavy. It was a little hard. She was panting. As a result, her plump hip was severely kicked by Zhang Shenzhen. The old man joked, "Gushai, you owe it to the day after tomorrow's maintenance, but with this, it's a little reluctant to be a second-class servant girl on Xianxia Island, but it's more than enough to be a third-class servant girl. I don't care about you, but there are several scattered guests on Xianxia Island. I can't say you're good. You should fight hard at that time. Don't be shy and miss a blessing in vain." The woman's body was slightly stiff. Most of her body was still under the bed and could not see her expression clearly. "Walk into an alley," Che Jingchen said to Chen Ping'an. "Cai Zhenjian and Fu Nanhua will be at my disposal. Now that you have this ancestral tree leaf, don't underestimate life and death. Living well is the greatest reward for your parents. As for the three forces of Yangshan Mountain, La Longking and Zhijiang Shenzhen, I can't say they will never trouble you, but they won't come to trouble you in 10 years. If you're lucky, Yukani has always been a civilian and can be safe for 30 years. Che Jingchen smiled. "There's no need to be taboo about the town. In the future, there won't be any more calculations in a short time. If you want to live safely for 20 or 30 years, you might as well marry a girl here and start a family and business. It's also a good thing if you want to go outside the town and see the real world. Reading thousands of books and traveling thousands of miles is what we scholars must do in the future. You will find that it is difficult to read and easy to walk in the small town. Outside, many readers are easy to buy books, read books and collect books, but they just don't like walking long distances and dislike hardship. The so-called negative study tour is just a car outing." The young man was surprised and said, "Mr. Che, it's hard to walk." Che Jingchen laughed. "Let's not talk about outside the town. Just around. Have you seen several piers in Fulu Street and Tawai Lane running around like you?" The boy nodded and said, "Really?" Che Jingchen thought for a moment, reached out and pulled out a jasper hairpin inserted in the bun, bent down and handed it to the poor boy. "It's just a parting gift. It's not valuable, let alone the mortal family items. Don't worry. In fact, like you, I was a young man in a bad alley. I worked hard and experienced many hardships and UPS. Of course, I also had all kinds of opportunities. This was the time when I entered Shenyang Academy and studied with my teacher. It was the happiest time of Che Jingchen's life. Later, when my husband came out of the mountain, he gave it to me. This hairpin is a kind of expectation and trust for me. It's a pity that looking back now, I've been doing a bad job for so many years. I believe if my husband is alive, he will be disappointed." How did the boy take this gift? This green jade hairpin seems to contain the friendship between Mr. Dao Zhen and his teacher and apprentice. Needless to say, it is not light. The young man didn't see it anymore. He was also a figure of royal porcelain. He still had some appreciation for the quality of a thing. Jian warned Channel, if you stay here with me, the legacy of your mentor will be buried with me. You might as well give it to you. Besides, you're in fact worthless and receive no reward. I have stayed in the town for nearly 60 years and have a small knot that I can't untie. Unfortunately, your mentor is dead. I thought I wouldn't get an answer in my life. You inadvertently helped me solve my doubts. So I gave you this hairpin. I'm in love and reason champion. I can only ask you for a local slave. I can't give you any more opportunities. The boy took the ordinary jade hairpin with both hands, looked up and said sincerely, Sir, I've done a lot. Xianxia left it off, seeing that the boy was persuaded to accept the hairpin by himself. He lost the hard disease. The hairpin is really ordinary, but it is the legacy of a mentor. It's good to give it to a boy who doesn't insult the inscription of the hairpin. So Xianxia finally told Champion, remember, no matter what you encounter in the future, you don't lose hope for the world. Outside the house in Mudbottle Lane, there was a naughty child with a slug hanging. He was kicking the door fiercely, swearing and spitting. Champion, if you don't get out, I'll find someone to cut you down and smash a pile of junk in your house. I know what you're doing at home. Are you with Xianxia's little daughter-in-law and Zhigui? In broad daylight. I don't know how it feels to take care of Xianxia. Well, if you don't come out, I'll leave. I'm really gone. You'll think of it all your life when I leave. See me. My babies. I wanted to leave them to you, Champion. Come out. I don't know why. At the end of the scolding, the child pulled the two slugs back to his old nest with a little cry. Gokun suddenly felt a pain in his skull. He quickly turned around and looked at the familiar face. When he saw the familiar face, the child burst out and scolded. Champion. Your uncle's single quote says ... The straw sandal boy's face was not very good looking. Gokun quickly turned the rudder and added, How are you? Flowing clouds and flowing water. Turning smoothly. Not stiff. Accustomed to the heartless and heartless son of a rabbit. Champion with a new pottery pot didn't have a good airway. You okay? Don't you know? Gokun realized that he still had business. He quickly pulled Champion to the gate of the hospital, and then stuffed two embroidered bags into Champion's hand. The child lowered his voice and asked, Do you remember the little loach I asked you for last year? Champion was confused. He was carrying a heavy bag. Things were not strange. At that time, the young man in royal clothes who forcibly bought the golden carp gave himself a bag of copper money. Champion looked around. There were no pedestrians at both ends of the Mudbottle Lane. He still hurried to open the door, drove Gokun into the yard, put the pottery pot aside, and asked blandly, A foreigner asked you to buy that loach, didn't he? Gokun, I advise you not to sell it. Don't sell it even if you kill it. Don't you want to make your mother live a good life in the future? You must keep that loach. Do you know? Gokun burst into tears, grabbed Champion's sleeve with both hands, and sobbed. I wanted to return the loach to you, but my mother wouldn't let me, and slapped me in the face, though my mother hasn't hit me since childhood. And the storyteller. I don't know whether it's an immortal or a ghost. It's very scary. First he took me to the white bowl, and then the loach suddenly became very big. Much bigger than my big water tank. Champion covered the child's mouth, stared seriously, and said, The loach is yours. Gokun, do you want to let your mother live a good life in the future? Can you eat meat every day? Let your mother use rouge powder and buy that kind of silky clothes. Gokun sniffed and nodded hard. Champion let go, squatted down and asked, What's the matter with the 2 bags of money? Did you steal it? Gokun's eyes turned and just wanted to cheat. Champion was really familiar with him. The little bastard knew what shoe to pull when he powdered his ass. He directly rewarded Gokun with a chestnut and said sternly, Take it back. Gokun's stubborn temper also came up. None. Champion's face was so angry that he raised his hand to have a real chestnut. He just saw the child's stubborn expression. Champion was a little soft-hearted. He slowed down his tone, thought for a while and asked, What's going on? You tell me. Gokun told Champion the whole story. He didn't deny that the child usually made people hate his teethish, but he was really smart and early. From the old locust tree to the iron log well, and then to the yacht of the mud bottle lane. He made it clear to Chen Ping'an that the storyteller wanted to take him as an apprentice. Chen Ping'an knew about it at this moment. Gokun probably got the ancestral locust in the town one of these characters. Whether the ancestral grave is smoking or leaky. As Mr. Dao Jian and Daoist priest Lu said, Gokun should be taken away from the town by the storyteller. However, at the thought of Liu Shamao, the real king who intercepted the river, Chen Ping'an's heart is tense. According to Mr. Dao Jian, this man's conduct is really bad. He wants to kill himself soon, so he doesn't hesitate to use immortal family magic to frame himself and Jian. It's a good thing that Gokun recognizes this person as a master, but to say the least, this person is willing to take Gokun as an apprentice instead of cheating or buying and selling. Does that mean that Gokun won't worry about his life for the time being? The ghost child's eyes turned sharply. While Chen Ping'an was thinking about the problem, Lam Building grabbed the 2 money bags in Chen Ping'an's hand, smashed them into the house, and then turned and ran away. As a result, Chen Ping'an grabbed the bag collar and pulled it back to the original place. Gokun holds his head in his hand and looks pathetic. Although Chen Ping'an forcibly dragged the child back, he hesitated about how to deal with it. The things involved were too big. Chen Ping'an was afraid of making the wrong choice, causing Gokun and his mother to be implicated. If it were just his own business, this helpless straw sandal boy would be much crisper and neat. The girl in black didn't know when she had got out of bed and stood behind the threshold. My mother once said that everyone has his own fate. This child is a disaster for thousands of years, and there is no lack of shit like in the future. Gokun see us like us 2 peas, and wipe up to noses. He is grinning and showing his missing teeth. The smiling face flatters. Sister, you are really handsome. You look just like my elder sister. Chen Ping'an said helplessly. When did your mother marry your father? After being exposed, the child immediately turned his eyes, changed his face and tone, and Tat said, Chen Ping'an, you can be promising. When did you abduct a woman to go home? Do you want to make a bridal chamber? Unfortunately, I can't catch up. Otherwise, I will squat at the corner of the wall and listen to you fight with the mortals in bed. Chen Ping'an slapped Gokun's head and apologized to the girl in black. He's like this. Don't be angry. The girl glanced at the child. There. Gokun was about to give full play to his family biography. He noticed that the palm on his head quietly increased his strength. He immediately became sick and said weakly, Sister, you look so smart. You're right to say anything. The girl in black ignored the child, turned to Chen Ping'an and said with deep meaning, You better take the 2 bags of copper money to avoid becoming enemies in the future. Moreover, once the child has achieved success in his cultivation in the future, you won't let him feel less guilty today, which is likely to cause his Taoist heart to be unstable and lead to the entrance of externalized demons. Gokun liked to hear this, and gave the sister a thumb. Long hair and long knowledge. It's really more reliable than a little girl next door. The girl in black raised her eyebrows and accepted it gladly. In the distance of the mud bottle lane, there was a fiery roar. Gokun. The child's face was pale. Go. Chen Ping'an. I'm gone. He said he was leaving. In fact, the child didn't realize it. He grabbed Chen Ping'an's 5 fingers harder and harder. Maybe subconsciously, Gokun has already regarded Chen Ping'an as the only relative besides his mother. Chen Ping'an took the child out of the yard, squatted down and whispered, Gokun, remember to be careful of your master. Also, take good care of your mother. A man's husband, your mother can only rely on you in the future. Don't always let her worry. Gokun said. Chen Ping'an also said, when you go outside, do more and talk less. Control your mouth and eat some losses. Don't always think about getting butt cheap. People outside, unlike us, will bear a grudge. With red eyes, the child sang the opposite tune and said, the people on that side also bear a grudge. But you are not. Chen Ping'an was speechless. Chen Ping'an suddenly woke up and asked in a deep voice, Gokun, did you get a locust slave? If not, Chen Ping'an doesn't think Gokun got the chance of the immortal family. Maybe the arrival of Mr. Shu is a reminder that as soon as the child heard this, he was angry. He took a light out of his pocket and habitually scolded his mother. I don't know which bastard who got $1,000 secretly stuffed so many ragged leaves into my pocket. I found them when I stole out of the house just now. It's no Zhang Xiaopeng or Liu Mei's girl film. If I see it when I wash my mother's clothes, I won't have to scold me for not worrying. Fortunately, I'm leaving now. Where I won't sneak into their hut, hit a stone. The child scolded vigorously. Chen Ping'an was stunned at first, and then relieved. Seeing that the guy was going to throw hard on the ground, he hurriedly stopped the child's behavior. He said with a great expression, "Gokun, put them away. Be sure to put them away, if you can. It's best not to show her even your mother thought it's probably for her good." The child was at a loss, but still nodded and said, "Okay." Chen Ping'an breathed out and said to himself, "Now I'm really relieved." Gokun suddenly leaned forward, knocked Chen Ping'an's head with his forehead, and sobbed, "I'm sorry." Chen Ping'an rubbed his small head, smiled and scolded. "Silly." Gokun suddenly whispered in his ear that Chen Ping'an was stunned on the spot. The child turned and ran away. While jogging, he turned his head and waved. "Listen to the old man saying that he wants to take me and my mother to a place called Shijian or Xianxia Island. If you can't afford to marry your daughter-in-law in the future, go to me. I'm not bragging. I'll give you 17 or 8 beautiful women like Jigui next door." Chen Ping'an stood in place and nodded that, also a little sad. After all, Gokun is like his brother, so Chen Ping'an is willing to let Gokun do anything. The straw sandal boy looked at the child's fading figure and was stunned that his life is always like this. People who really care can seem to retain them. The boy in the mud bottle lane grinned. "God is stingy." The door of the next yard opened gently and came out of the maidservant Jigui. She was as graceful as a lotus in a pond. Chen Ping'an asked, "Have you heard Gokun speak ill of you before?" She blinked her long eyes and said, "Just don't hear me. Anyway, I can't beat them." Chen Ping'an was a little embarrassed, so he had to help Gokun say good words to the bastard and run the court. In fact, what he has in mind is that he speaks a little ugly. Childish Gui pulled the corners of her mouth expressionless. "Gokun is good or bad? I don't know. Her widow mother is not a fuel-saving lamp, I'm sure." Chen Ping'an didn't know how to answer, so she had to learn from Han and pretend she didn't hear anything. She suddenly asked an inexplicable question. "Chen Ping'an, do you really regret it?" Chen Ping'an was stunned. "What?" Jigui saw that he didn't pretend to be a fool. She sighed, turned back to the yard and closed the wooden door. Chen Ping'an, with excellent eyesight, has been standing in the lane. Finally, he saw that the door of Gokun's house opened in the distance and came out of the 3 people. Among them, the mother and son carried their bags and slowly walked to the other end of the mud bottle lane. Chen Ping'an even clearly saw that the storyteller turned his head, glanced at himself, and smiled. After the 3 disappeared at the end of the alley, Chen Ping'an returned to his yard and saw that the girl in black had been able to sit on the threshold that is her body burned made of iron. Chen Ping'an first put the jade hairpin given by Mr. Dao Jie and the 2 bags of copper money brought by Gokun on the table, and then began to boil water, grab medicine, and decoct medicine. He was familiar. He didn't come from a kill worker, but like a man who had been in a medicine shop for many years. The girl in black had some doubts, but she didn't ask the board comment. She got up and came to the table, thought about it, and took out the money bag Chen Ping'an had hidden in a bottle. After she sat down, there were 3 bags of money and a jade hairpin on the table. Of course, there was a long spiritual sword that shrank in the corner. Chen Ping'an didn't stop her from taking the money, but turned around and told her, "Mr. Dao Jie gave me the JDJRPIN. Be careful." Miss Ning, probably for fear that the girl would not be interested. Chen Ping'an blushed and reminded, "You really have to be careful." The girl rolled her eyes. 3 bags of gold, refined copper money, spring greeting money, support money, win money. It's a coincidence that it's all together. The girl held her cheek in one hand, stretched out her fingers in the other hand, fiddled with 3 copper coins, and asked casually, "How's your business? Can you tell me?" Chen Ping'an squatted at the bottom of the wall on the other side of the window, carefully staring at the fire, looked through 3 prescriptions from time to time, and after hearing the question, "Is it appropriate to say?" The girl frowned and said, "You've been in such a miserable field. You're worried about who will kill me after I hear the secret." Chen Ping'an, "I didn't say you, but you're such a bad man. I advise you not to leave the town all your life, or you won't know how to die." The girl mourned her misfortune and was furious. Even a strong sword fairy without her golden body and Tianjun Taoism will die within a year if she is thrown to her hometown. The straw sandal boy said happily, "Then I'll tell you." The girl held down 3 copper coins with 3 fingers and wiped them off the table. "Love to say or not," Chen Ping'an told the girl what happened before Mr. Dodge appeared, and then selectively said something about what happened after. After hearing this, the girl said quietly, "Liu Shimao, the true king of the river, is obviously the culprit. But Cai Jinjian and Fu Nanhua are not good birds. If Mr. Dodge didn't come out to smash paste, you would not escape the encirclement, suppression, and killing of the 3 forces. Even if you escape to the ends of the earth, to put it ugly, it's really easy to kill you. If you weren't in a small town, let alone Liu Shimao, you would be the woman of Xianxia Mountain. 1 finger can crush you to death." Chen Ping'an nodded and said, "I know." The girl shouted angrily, "You know a fort." Chen Ping'an did not refute and continued to decoct the medicine. She asked, "The reason why you have this disaster is all because of the lodge. Why don't you tell the child the truth?" Chen Ping'an didn't keep silent or turn his head this time. He sat on the small bench, looked down at the cyan flame, and whispered, "It's wrong." The girl wanted to talk and stopped. Finally, she looked at the thin figure and said with emotion, "Do you know that if your fist is not hard, no one will care about your right or wrong?" The young man shook his head and said, "No matter whether others listen or not, truth is truth." He seemed a little uncertain, so he turned his head and asked with a smile, "Right?" The girl glared at each other. "To you, big head." The boy turned his head again and continued to cook medicine. The girl in black, a foreign girl named Nin Yang, picked up the green jade hairpin and looked intently. She found a line of small characters engraved in the seal. She glanced at the boy named Chen Ping'an. There are 8 words on the hairpin. Even a girl who is only crude and plain, she also feels very moving. Speak of a gentleman and woman like jade.